Good evening, everyone. You cannot connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backwards. Everybody knows that's shared by Steve Jobs. Now, these words of Steve Jobs remind us that our journeys not only make sense in the moment, but when we look back, how we see
ना
every
मेरा एक
challenge.
ऑनलाइन मीटिंग शुरू हो गया है। ये आपको मैंने डॉक्यूमेंट भेजा है, ये एक बार जरा देख लो। मैं थोड़ी देर में कॉल करता हूँ दुर्गेश आपको।
Right.
Debishi, I think you can mute all
And let me
participants.
see if I can do that. Yes, I can. People are joining in. Okay, everybody's muted. So coming back to Steve Jobs. So Jobs himself, he dropped out of college, took the calligraphy class. We all know about the history. But why we are talking about Jobs today is, what he predicted that he was going to influence the world with Mac, with iPhone. He couldn't have predicted, but he did it by joining the dots perfectly, joining it backwards. And coaching is no different. Steve Jobs was a futurist, and all of you who are sitting in the room are futurist as well. Our experiences, our values as a community, even our setbacks, shape how we coach, lead, and transform the world. A great coach isn't just skill, they think differently, they make the other person think differently, and they co-create new actions which were not meant to happen. Seeing this pattern, seeing these connections, and using their journey to create transformational impact in the room, outside the room, in the community, is the job of a coach. And today, with the quote of Steve Jobs and the mindset of a coach, we are going to explore that, how to develop a coaching mindset by connecting the dots on your journey to mastery. And who better can guide us than somebody who has walked the path, navigated the challenges, and discovered the mindset that truly makes a difference? So, join me to welcome our very own Vijayalakshmi and Sandhya Mathur. A warm welcome to both of you. But hold on, I have a long intro disclaimer. And with
Oh my
kind
God.
permission to from both of you, I'd like to introduce what you all know and a little bit of things that you don't know. So, are you excited to have a glimpse of this introduction of what you know and what you don't know and start connecting the dots? Just drop excited if that is you. Just drop a quick excited if that is you. Okay. So as the comments are pouring in, yes, I can see a lot of excitement. So what do you know about Viji? Viji is a luminary in the coaching world. We are so proud to have her in India. An ICF MCC, MP, EMCC coach. She's a guiding light. Not only illuminates the path to excellence, but guides transformation with unwavering passion. A trailblazing master coach, mentor, a leadership catalyst, she has spent over 24 years shaping leaders, empowering individuals, and redefining possibilities in executive, leadership, and wellness coaching. She lives by the mantra of play at full potential, ensuring that no dream is left untouched, even when others are ready to give up. As a visionary founder of Coach Consult, she seamlessly integrates coaching with management consulting to drive profound organizational change. She's a force behind Coaches for You and just wait. Okay, Coaches for You. I gave you a long introduction disclaimer, right? And her impact is just not in recognized globe within India, but across the globe. ICF Coaching Impact Awards 2024, ICF India Coaching Excellence Guru Award 2022, and there are many more, which I'm not covering right now. A former ICF Chennai president, she has been instrumental in shaping the coaching community and alumni of National Law School Bangalore and XRI Jamshedpur. She continues to lead, inspire, and elevate the coaching profession worldwide. But here's something that you might know. Vijay is just not a leader, but a visionary designer at heart. She's an advocate of design and branding, a mother of a design genie. She's someone who passionately blends functionality with beauty, not just in her projects, but in people. And if you ever find yourself on verge of giving up, Viji as a mentor won't let you do so. She believes in your dreams even when you don't. A little like Salman Khan. She is unstoppable, relentless, and always shining. She is the North Star that many look up to in their journey of growth and success. So, how many of you kind of, resonate with me? I'm sure I'm not the only one who has experienced it. Just drop a me if you can resonate this Viji, in our life, right? So, welcome, Viji. Yeah, Sanjeev is saying me, 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 me. I know a lot of me are going to come. Right. So next, now please join me to welcome our very own Sandhya Mathur. One word that describes Sandhya for me is nurturing maestro in coaching. With deep empathy and transformative insight, she has shaped the coaching landscape as the first director of credentialing at ICF Delhi NCR, setting new standards of excellence and mentoring future coaches. As the founder of Inward Focus, she has built a powerful coaching ecosystem empowering executives, professionals, women leaders to navigate challenge, enhance executive presence, and lead with confidence. Her guidance has sparked countless sapphire moments, breakthroughs of clarity, growth, and impact. She also serves as the Director of Education at Symbiosis Coaching USA, integrating global best practices with practical wisdom to elevate coaching worldwide. And now, my favorite part, what you don't know. Sandhya is the author of an upcoming book, Coaching the Invisible: How Top Coaches Use Neuroscience, Emotion, and Spiritual Intelligence to Drive Results, unveiling the hidden forces that drive transformational coaching. Beyond her work, Sandhya has a beautiful headspace, heart space, and home space where her balconies bloom beautifully at their fullest, just like her mentees. With her compassion, wisdom, and unwavering dedication, she continues to inspire, empower leaders and coaches across the globe. So, how many of you have been nurtured by Sandhya? Just drop me in the chat box. Now, time for me. I am the connecting dot between both of you, both of them. You must have guessed that. A Commonwealth scholar, a coaching advocate, and an ICF PCC coach. Tonight, I am the host, the secretary of Delhi ICF chapter, for a host for this evening. My path has been lit up by the Ashirvadi conversations. That's what I say with these two people, the conversations that I have with these phenomenal leaders when I ran out of hope. And it has happened multiple times. They mentored, nurtured me back into possibility. Now, something you should know that they are very different in their approaches when it comes to mentoring, but yet they share one unwavering truth, a rock solid commitment for their mentees, which is awesome. The wisdom, guidance, and belief in me has shaped who I am. Today is a big fan moment for me. Welcome, Vijayalakshmi and Sandhya.
Thank you, Debishi. It's,
That was the longest introduction,
you know,
but I
yes.
had to give
You
it.
know, Vijay, I always say it's the best beginning to any webinar, any place when Debashi introduces you. You just feel so fantastic about yourself.
I know. I was like thinking we are in some chat show, right?
But
I was about to just
फिर
sit
क्या
ready and
करेंगे
just
मैडम?
wait and watch the action. And I said, oh my God,
Can I
I'm in the
meet you at about
spotlight
1?
now. Thank you so much,
1:30 भी
Rishi.
चलेगा?
Okay, ma'am.
ठीक है? So between 1 and 1:30 I'll be there and then we get to.
Deepika,
Oh,
you.
sorry. So sorry, so sorry. There's a call which came. I'm extremely
Not a problem, not a problem. I think I muted everyone.
I just love the lightness of the space, right? Like just like coaching, there's lots going on in the background, and you know we try to do our best as coaches, thinking we can. Over to you, Deveshi.
So, with this space, like we always say that Delhi NCR chapter is the home for aspiring coaches, for coaches to grow in their growth journey. So, today's conversation is definitely going to be about people who are going to walk the path, and both of you have been the North Stars lighting up the path for others. And we are going to take a little bit of a hint from Steve Jobs, mirroring his stories, his journey, which is in three parts. So today's conversation is going to be like the famous three stories of Steve Jobs. We're going to have the beginning, the G0 stage as a coach, about the mastery, the growth, and the breakthrough, and beyond mastery. So, are you all ready to connect the dots as this conversation shapes up beautifully? Yeah. So the first question which came to my mind is about the starting point, right? As Steve Jobs started out dropping from college, he made a unique but decision which turned out to be best for his life. And for you, Vijay, I'm going to start with that. As you started your G0 stage as a coach, what was the moment you felt that you want to step into coaching? How did it feel for you? Just take us back to that time.
Yeah, it's a tough question, to be very honest. It's like saying, you know, when did your leadership moment start? Right now, there is a bit of when all of us come into formal leadership roles. So we can say maybe, you know, when I started off in a management training program, or I took over, you know, joined an organization, or I had a team, and those could be defining leadership moments. But I think the seeds for this is actually sown a lot earlier in life. The time when you held a position of responsibility in your school, or much earlier, even in a social setting. So it's actually a very hard question what you're asking. Because coaching, the way I see it, and one's identity as a coach are two very separate things. So I'm very fortunate to say that my brush with coaching happened more than 20 years back. And, you know, I won't say I got into it accidentally. It was not just one moment something happened and I figured it out. But I think it happened rather intuitively for me. I was doing coaching without actually realizing it was a thing. And, you know, we're talking about India 20 years back. I don't think it was such a big thing. Yeah. Even today, I think there is a lot of confusion, but I think certainly then coaching did not refer to what we today refer as professional coaching. But I think my identity as a coach probably happened about a decade back when I was at quite a crossroad in my life as to where do I want to go from here? Where do I want to dedicate my life? And by then I had, you know, some rich life and professional experiences under my belt. And that's fertile ground, right? You can sort of go any path. But there's something about coaching that seemed like a higher calling. And as you beautifully said, if you'd asked me then, would I say this? Absolutely not. You know, I knew it was something. I didn't know what I was actually getting into. But I knew one thing, that the way I wanted to lead my life, yeah, the purpose that I wanted to align with, I wanted to make real, tangible, meaningful difference, which I think coaching offered. So I never sort of saw coaching as a micro skill or, a vocation that is done in a certain way in a certain room. I always sort of saw a larger power of coaching.
Mm,
But in all honesty, I didn't know what that power was.
wow.
And it also took a bit of a leap of faith, uh, to just jump in and then start saying, hey, I'm a coach. The first few times it actually even felt I was not very sure. What am I saying, right? I would hate that question when people asked me, especially in social settings. So what do you do? So much easier to say I'm an HR leader or I'm a management consultant or something else. I'm a coach. And I would feel so empty about it. But today I can say for sure that when I say I'm a coach, there is a bit of attitude that I'm carrying with me. And that comes from a lived experience, which I didn't have at that point of time. So yeah, that's how, I know that I've answered your question because it's a very difficult question, Dibeshi. But I think the point I want to talk about and leave everybody to think about is, are you coaching or do you identify as a coach? And these are two very different things.
Mm. I think, you've already gave us the food to go inside and connect these two questions. So we already have two dots. Uh, with that space, Sandhya, what about you? Were there any defining moments when you started connecting the dot?
Yes, Devashi, there is, and I would say that when I look back, yes, some experiences very similar to what Vijay went through. But if I look back, I would go back to a time where I was just a little larger than a dot myself. Maybe a roly-poly 5 or 6 year old. And I've gone back and thought about this many times, and it's amazing, as you know, just like you quoted Steve Jobs, all of those things seemed so inconsequential at that time. They were in the present, right? And now when I look back, I can go back, and how I go back to that age is is not is a gift. I'm honestly telling you that that's the kind of memory is a gift from the universe. So the way it started was that I could observe my reactions and my emotions at a very young stage. And when I was hurt, anger I've seen very, very closely. And I could see that when I felt angry, and I'm going into the emotional part, I'll come to the rest. Because I understood anger because I was hurt when I was angry. So it was a complex thing. And only I knew that. I had a tough time explaining that to anybody, right? Now, I have those very, very distinct memories. And then my own experiences as a young student came from um, a student, a much pampered child. As a child, in my childhood, we were in a very, very large joint family, super pampered. And the spiritual aspect there, and I'm not talking ritual, I'm talking of spirituality and academics, were the core. And that is how this whole thing started. And every grand uncle and aunts, everyone was willing to listen to me, to listen to what I have to say. So in a household of maybe 20 adults, I was the only child. And everyone was willing to listen. Now, what was happening, and I mean, I'll fast forward a little bit. I realized, and I realized back then and very, very early in life, that I performed best when let's say if it was school, if I loved the teacher, I loved the subject, and I performed well. I did very well in my academics. And when I didn't, and when I was like subdued, my creativity would get killed. And that I was learning from what? Other people's behaviors and my response. So over a period of time, I started articulating, and somehow I think my parents heard us out. It was a lunchtime dining table ritual that we would just talk, talk, and talk. So this awareness just kept growing, and I kept connecting the dots. Started my career in the IT world, gave up, I mean, got married, and IT, both of us were in IT. I gave up my career because we were far from home and there was no one to look after our daughter. That's when I started getting into things that after she was, a little older, I started getting into things that I was passionate about. I made my hobbies my passion. My passion grew into profession. I did a lot of things: interior accessories design, paintings, and whatnot, consulting for education, because the ambition to and the whole drive to get something done was always there. But somewhere deep down, I was always on the phone. It was a joke in our families. The phone's gonna ring and somebody's gonna talk to Sandhya for hours. So this awareness is there, and all of this is happening in life. Motherhood, marriage, giving up work, all of that is happening. I used to be on that, and some of you may have heard this story. I used to be on a phone like 4 hours, 5 hours, doing my chores at home, taking care of the kids, and I was talking to friends and family. I wasn't saying anything beyond a and a observation or some little thing once in a while. And what I realized that my friends and family were talking to me about their challenges, some really personal details about family and stuff. And that's when I realized that, hey, these people I'm just listening. I didn't dare give advice because, if it was, I knew the couple, right? If someone was discussing their issues at home, I knew the couple. I didn't want to give any advice because I didn't want to interfere. But while talking to me, they got what we call insights now, right? They found their solutions. And as Vijay said, then you realize that, hey, this is what I'm doing. I'm coaching. And I am not being the sage on stage there. I'm bringing forth their best potential. And I'm not killing their creativity by advising because I don't like it myself. So it was a do unto others as you would, right? And all of that just somehow shaped. And these are the dots over what, 40 years of life, from age 5 or 6 to that point. Studying, excelling in academics, super creativity, and excelling in the career, but giving up. That's a different story. But how it landed me into coaching. That's when I just certified myself, went in one certification, then and the rest is history, right? More and more and more. And then, of course, because of this whole thing of analyzing and being aware of my own emotions and being very vocal about how they matter, I went and specialized and did multiple certifications in EQ. So, dots. Those are the dots, but I don't think I should go on forever. I'll add to it. Yeah,
Thank
those
you so
are.
much, Sandhya, because I think what both of you shared is just not your story, your G0 point. Everybody in this room will be able to relate to those incidences. A lot of those have been the moment when they decided they want to say yes to this bigger cause, and they were self-aware. uh, while this is how it started, and I can see it's alive in both of you, my question to VG will be like, so all those beliefs about those coaching that you said, about those awareness that has been there about coaching when you just started, how they have evolved over time? Because from G0 stage to now, there's been a lot of change, a lot of shift. So do you want to talk about that, Vijay, a little bit?
Yeah, that's a lovely question. Um, so let me talk about maybe what strikes me in the moment. And some of these beliefs, again, there is a time and place. We're also talking about the world around us has changed. So, for example, in the last decade, changed crazily post and pre-pandemic. The world is totally different. So I think also some of our approaches, some of our beliefs, some of the ways we see the world also changes. So I think one is one's own evolution as a coach, but I think it's also the evolution of the world. And that's why I think it's very important for coaches um, to show up systemically. You don't coach in a vacuum. And I think that's the most important thing. And I'll start with that. One of my pivotal learnings, or I would say change of approach, is you rarely coach in a vacuum. And it's interesting because most of our coach training don't really go beyond focus in that session. Yeah. It's like you do fantastically on your markers, you learn the competencies, you learn models, and you're ready. But any real world practicing coach will say it's far from a sum of the sessions. A successful engagement or an impactful coaching assignment is not a sum of 10 sessions together. We wish it was that simple. But in that challenging equation also lies the joy and the challenge. So if you're like me, who actually, I think, shows up better when, with challenges, you love this profession. You will really thrive in the unpredictability of this. And the other part of today's webinar is all about coaching mindset, right? The openness, the flexibility, the curiosity, the client centricity. So simply, and we all know, right? I mean, earlier in the earlier competencies, there was no reference to coaching mindset. And I'm not getting into competency discussion here, but there is a place, and that also got launched in 2019, around the time, and the world pivoted at the time of the pandemic. And these became invaluable. So it also became invaluable in coaching. But the truth is, I think the essence of this profession is like that. The essence of the work we are doing. There is always going to be that dynamism. So to move from saying that coaching is really what happens in the session, what happens in the room, what happens in conversation, to looking at the overall impact that it's happening, the client, their systems, the role of the sponsor coming in, all of these things, the dynamic of the organization, the culture, the business reality within which this is, or let's say the family reality, like, Sandhya was talking about. A lot of people make life choices based on family circumstances. It's not their choice alone. They're taking that choice on behalf of the ecosystem. So this was a beautiful shift to be able to embrace it. Initially, it used to be overwhelming. It's not sort of neatly packaged. there is no boundary. And early on, coaches learn about boundary, right? You don't cross your boundaries. But inherently in the work we do, there are boundaries that are expanding constantly. So that comfort with going from a very structured, how do I say? I won't say it an easy approach, but a more structured, predictable approach to actually embracing, saying that coaching is all about unpredictability, being in the moment. Today's conversation, I know we spoke about it, we've had some pre-conversations. But if I were to just come in prepared with that, I'm really not going to be. And this moment, this, 40 odd people in the room here are providing an environment that is going to change this narrative and what we bring out. It is that recognition. So I think that was one big shift that also I think got accentuated on my journey to mastery. So which is why I would say if there's one thing my mastery journey taught me was to really embrace the meaning of coaching mindset beyond just another competency in the coaching toolkit. So that was one thing. The other thing, and I'll really pause with that and maybe come back and add on more, is to say that while a coach is a very important partner in this relationship, and I had also recently written about it somewhere, that in great coaching, you actually become quite insignificant. I don't mean to say that as a coach, you slack off or you don't do your best, you don't push the boundaries of excellence. You do all that. But really the work is happening through you. But you are not the work itself. So it takes that, again, that mindset and that maturity and I think experience to learn that you're quite insignificant. A great coaching partnership should actually, right, in an advanced stage, not be coach dependent. Because it's the partnership that is kind of giving you all of that outcome and whatever is required. So it's neither the client nor the coach, but the energy that is beautifully created and established in that system. Which also then means that you go back to an identity crisis, right? Saying if I become so irrelevant or, I play such a minuscule part, am I even adding value as a coach? So then you go back and, so there is this constant thing, but to understand saying in that insignificance, you're still playing a very important role, was another wonderful shift for me. And I specifically call this out to people who are the life of the party, who like to be center stage, who jump into action. Yeah, nothing wrong about any of that. I do a lot of that too. This shift can actually be hard.
I think, Vijay, both this conversation is making us go inward and think, and it's opening up a lot of threads inward. But as somebody who is in this journey, and many of us in this room we are walking on this path. Like what you said, we felt it at our heart. But if you can share some, I won't say habits, or how do we inculcate it in our everyday life, in who we are being, how do we, keep this, what you're sharing, alive and practice it? If you can share some ideas around it, that would be great.
Yeah. I would say treat success and failure with equal passion, because it is these, I won't call them mistakes. They're all learning opportunities. But right, as coaches, we know when we are falling short or when we wanted to say something, but we've said something else, or we wanted to show up in a certain way, but, we landed up being something else, or, something should have happened and it didn't happen. I would just say the first thing is to take that as a normal part of being. You need that. Imagine if you go in and every conversation, sounds textbook perfect. Something unreal about it. We're dealing with humans. So first thing I would say is grant yourself the permission to fail in your own eyes. Because when you see that, you know what else it could be, right? What else could have been the possibility? And I feel, again, this is, just very experience based. I just feel as coaches, sometimes we don't spend enough time talking with ourselves. I know there are lots of people in the ecosystem. There are mentors, and you were so gracious in acknowledging your mentors. And there's a place for everybody. There's supervisors, there are trainers, there are peers, there are buddies. But who you really need to spend time with, if you had to make that choice, is with yourself. And that means accepting your own failures. And I say this even for advanced stage coaches, right? Sometimes the pressure on you, which is why, for example, I always view live coaching demos with a pinch of salt. Because you're supposed to be the best version of yourself so you can teach everybody. And at the same time, we all know there will never be the best picture perfect version of ourselves, even in masterful conversations. So it's a bit of an oxymoron, honestly. To see that, because you probably fall short on most assessments or competencies, but that is how real coaching is. So spending time with yourself, and it may mean different things for different people. Yeah. I know people do journaling and other things, but really sort of observing and evolving your own journey, right? I mean, for example, if I were to ask you, do you know who's your preferred kind of client? Who puts you off? What kind of organizations don't you like to work with? Yeah. What irritates you? What kind of gets your patience? So being in touch with the not so beautiful parts of yourself, I think, is very important, because that's what we help our clients do, right? And yet there is that reservation, even to acknowledge with our own selves. Because then we feel like a bit of an imposter, saying, then what gives me the authority to be coaching another human being? So
That's
till
brave
we
in
can go in with
being-
this, I think we keep it absolutely real. So do that. And the second thing I want to say is find yourself a buddy. Yeah. All of us need different people in the system. Find yourself a buddy or two with whom you can completely be very vulnerable, or not going to be judging you. It's very important for us as coaches to sometimes go without our makeup and really, be with people who can actually see and hold space for us as we are. Yeah. So I would just say this, spend a lot of time with yourself. It's absolutely worth it. Like, for example, one of the things I do is every week I have a switch off day, most good weeks. Yeah. There are obviously not so good weeks. And that happens not because I didn't have work that day. That's by design. And now I have actually developed the courage to tell my clients that, saying that, today is my off day. Earlier, I used to think that, oh, I'm doing this, or I'm, doing something else. I don't need to do anything else. And today I can be proud of that and say that, yes, I do really intense work. So I need my time to recharge. Otherwise, how am I going to? So the shift really is, again, it goes back to my shift. And this is something which I think I can talk to a lot of people, and you may identify with this. This thing to really be super men and super women can actually get to us in our profession. It's like, you are a TV anchor. You always want to show up your best. That itself could be limiting for you. So find those, a buddy works great, because the power relationship is the same, right?
Yeah, buddy works great. And you both have seen me in my lowest point. And
Yeah.
so I know having mentors like you, who would be ruthlessly compassionate, telling you straight on your face, you can't give up. It's not for you. So yeah, that works amazing. Sandhya, you want to add on to this conversation?
Yes, I love that part about talking to yourself. Really love that. because I do that a lot actually, Vijay. And Debashi mentioned that my organization is called Invert Focus. Guess why it was named that way? Because I was looking for a synonym for introspection. I mean, I couldn't have called an organization introspection, right? So that's where it comes from. Because um, I do believe that yes, we have a structure, and yes, we may or may not be ready after those our certification, our basic certification, and there is no perfect coaching conversation. But we do need a structure, right? We need a structure, and we weave our own art into it. And to me, somehow, coaching is a very, very structured approach to spirituality. Because when I say I'm bringing the best potential out from a client, right? What is the best potential? When I'm talking about that for myself, I'm looking inwards, isn't it? So, however we do that, we dance in the moment, whatever we do, there is a structure. We are not going to be perfect. That dance is not going to be perfect. But ultimately, and honestly, this is just me personally, because I come from a, very, very grounded thing, and I do incorporate the concepts of Eastern philosophy, especially, I mean, Buddha, I'm a practicing Buddhist. So bringing out the best, compassion, empathy, changing lives, bringing on shifts and transformation from within. What is it? We are doing really intense and deep work, as you said, right? And I just wanted to add that I love that conversation with self. I spend my time off is conversation with myself. I completely get that.
Yeah.
Thanks
Thank
for
you.
bringing that up.
Flowers as well. I've seen that.
Oh, yes, they are my inspiration.
Yes. So I thought I'll introduce the second part, but we have already come to the second part, the story number two, where Steve Jobs actually was opening up threads and trying to do different stuff to reach his level of mastery. And it was not linear. He made a lot of choices which were not conventional, and it led towards growth. So I'm sure Jobs would be jealous of the conversation that we're having and would love to participate. But Vijay, my question to you is, we had this conversation, and you'll always, like, while I was doing my PCC, and you'll always ask me to go back to Devishi core competency two. That is where lies the seed of you, the seed of being a coach, right? And you've emphasized it in all the webinars that I've known you from your webinar even before I met you, and all of that. So can you share, like, how, going back to the core competency and that being the heart of your journey, how you have evolved, how this has empowered you to navigate through those challenges and be who you are today and who you will be? Because I feel that's calibrated your journey in a very special way. And people like us who, are getting mentored by you.
Thank you for bringing that. And I don't know whether you remember, Debeshi, um, when you had watched my webinar and we didn't know one another. In fact, I think it was the coaching mindset webinar from many years back. And funny thing is, while a lot of that, I went back to that webinar recently because a coach from Europe I didn't know at all had chance to see that, and said, you said this one, but I was like, oh really, did I say this? So went back to it. While I think a lot of things have remained unchanged, I think my own perspectives have also evolved. So it's nice that you brought this back, and a bit of deja vu. So let's kind of break it down in a very simple way. Yeah, why is coaching mindset important for anybody? A mindset is important because mindset is all about the way you see the world. It is like getting putting a camera into your mind and understanding. So coaching mindset is nothing but the coach's mind, which is where a lot of our identity comes from. And I mentioned saying that the hardest question for me was, what do you do, or what, who is a coach, or what is coaching? And I later figured out there's a different way to answer it. While you can, I think, take it in a very theoretical way and talk about it through examples, you can talk about, your life's work through coaching. And each of us, Sandhya has a journey. Maybe the way she sees the essence of coaching could be very different from the way I see. And of course, we will have commonalities. But I think it's important for each of us to have a script and a narrative about ourselves. Then it becomes a lot easier to explain our service and profession, because coaching is one of those unique professions where you become your profession. I have many times said this and I say it again. The most powerful toolkit for a coach is yourself. And you don't need really anything much more. Of course, you can add on layers, you can embellish it, etc. But this is the core. This is the core product. You look at it from a marketing angle. Who is the product? What is the power product? You are the product. So you bring that in. Yeah. And coaching mindset enables you to really answer a couple of questions, which I think is so important for any coach to be clear about. I'm not saying you the day you put your board saying that I'm coach, I'm in business, you need to know these answers. They evolve, they change, they shift. But at any point of time, it's important to at least make an effort to go closer to those. So these questions would be, what does this profession really mean to me? What does coaching really mean to me? What's the meaning I make of it beyond, let's say, a definition by an association or an organization? The next one is, coaching why. What is my coaching why? Why do I coach? Yeah, it's not I am because I coach, but why do I coach? Why do I really, really coach? For some of us, it is about playing to your gifts. For some of us, it's about social impact. For some of us, it's about being a very economically profitable profession. Whatever be that why, but figure that out. And then finally, and we talk about cluttered marketplaces. We talk about, one of the things I often hear in coaching circles is, so many coaches are being churned out with every passing day. Where are the clients? This is real. Yeah. And that's a separate conversation we can have. So, and then there are conversations about branding, establishing yourself. How do you do your USP and things like that? But at the core of all that is about, what kind of a coach do I want to be? So 3 questions. What does coaching mean to me? Why do I coach? And what is the kind of role model coach that I want to be? And again, you're not going to get there overnight. So, this is very important for coaches to have this clarity. And this is nothing but self-leadership. We talk about self-leadership for our clients. This is personal mastery of self-leadership that a coach brings in. And, this translates as coaching confidence, which clients really love. So I think, which is why I said, a lot of the work, of course, it lays the foundation for mastery. But I think figuring out coaching mindset and practicing it in letter and spirit is something that makes a lot of sense for any coach, irrespective of what life stage you are in. So there goes my, business case for really, really figuring out and practicing core competency too.
Wow, Vijay. There's so many, what do I say? Keywords, power keywords that you gave. Each one of them can become, Sandhya, we can have webinars on each one of them. But the favorite, which is, standing out for me, is the coaching confidence. That's it's the first time I'm actually hearing this in from you, from any one of the webinars. So coaching confidence, when that shows up in the space, and leading self that happens, there's no other option but that entire space to, go to a next level and choose what they want to be. I think the word choice is also going to come up. So Sandhya, this is amazing space. Like, before going to Sandhya, I just want to check how all of you are feeling. What is that you look, for me, a lot of questions are going to come up, and this is a recorded session, thank God. I'm going to watch it 3 to 4 times. So one of the habits I have picked up from all of them is that I would re-watch their webinars, Sandhya's, Vijay's, and everybody who is a mentor, re-watch their webinars, because you can't get the meaning by watching it one time. The way when you read the book, transformation happens. When you reread it, it's same. So before I go to Sandhya, I just want to, ask all of you, if you have a question, is there a reflection? Is there something that you'd like to share right now at this moment? I think it's going to take a while for everyone to type. So please do type in. Meanwhile, Sandhya, I would want to ask you about the inward focus question, right? So you are a coach who, balances intuition beautifully with the frameworks that you've learned from different kinds of, from the Eastern philosophy, from your Sapphire movements, from EQ, from Buddhism, as you gain the mastery. But when you do it, we can never distinguish what is at play. So how do you blend it? How do you balance it?
Tough question, because honestly, it happens in the moment and it's years and years of working on it. But to answer that, Debashi, I'll just go back to talking about the coaching mindset, right? So the coaching mindset is the coach's mindset. Each one of us is, can I say, as the competency goes, required to possess that. It is really about how I think, how I believe, what my emotions are, and what my response mechanisms are, right? That is mindset. And it is not about, it is about who you are. It's about you being, how, your entire being within the coaching process and outside of it also. Because I do believe it's not a electrical switch that you can put on and put off, right? Within a conversation or outside of it. So again, this definitely needs reflection, right? Some introspection there. And I would say that we all know that coaches are required. One of the skills that we talk about in the competency embodies a coaching mindset that we both talking about. One of those skills is, of course, to manage and navigate our own emotions and be mentally prepared for our sessions. How does that happen? How does that happen? What is that life state when you are going to be able to manage all of that? So I also have some questions for that. And those are the questions that I ask myself, and I would share those with you. What's my mindset in general in that moment or otherwise? What's my attitude? What are my emotions? And the third one, I would say, check yourself. Am I being the sage on stage? Just because I'm a coach, just because I'm a credentialed, certified, accredited coach, do I have the authority to fix something in someone's life? Am I being that sage on stage where I need to advise people? Do I need to fix things? Or micromanage stuff in the personal or professional life? Is it about me? It's not, right? It's really not. You got to lose yourself, just like Vijay said. So the last question is, am I really supporting the client and others around me discover their unique potential? Am I on that path? Now, the point is, if I'm asking myself those questions, if I'm reflecting there, what is that? That is self-awareness, right? Do we, as coaches, have this level of self-awareness? Because honestly, I come from a space where I say, if I don't have that kind of awareness, it follows that to a large extent, I lack the capacity for social awareness and also working on myself and then working on my connections with others. When I'm talking about self-awareness and social awareness, I'm talking about EQ, my emotional intelligence. How aware am I? And then how aware am I going to be able to be with my client or whatever my surroundings are? And, I mean, I'm so glad, Vijay, that you brought up the whole concept of you're not coaching in a vacuum, right? The client is coming from a full life. So just think of the energy that you're going to exude when you are in this kind of life state of awareness. When you understand your own emotions, your own thoughts, and you're able to work with that for the client, your client as well, it'll make it easier for the client to connect with us. It's the energetic connection that we create with them with this kind of mindset and presence. And when you respect that and accept the client the way they are, you just create that beautiful environment of trust. And then when that openness and everything happens, all that intuition and everything starts working. It's the ultimate stimulus to, feel valued when you respect someone. And when you are aware of the impact that you're creating with your questions and your observations, that's EQ at work. If you're listening well, deeply and actively, your intuition is going to work, because when you're receiving all the stimuli from the cosmos, your sixth, through your five senses, I would say, your sixth sense will work. And then it's very important, it's a very, very important, I would say, to coaching mastery. And when I talk about coaching mastery, it's not some ultimate destination. It is just the path of mastery, which will continue. I mean, I think as long as we live, it's just going to carry on. There's more to learn. There's more to, you evolve every day. I think it's imperative for a coach to develop and really tap their emotional intelligence. Imagine for a moment not being able to sense the energy and not be aware of the impact your questions and observations are creating. So that's the way, that's my approach, and that's why the whole intuitive thing works. And I roll in the concepts of EQ, Eastern philosophy, within the structure that we learn in the classroom. Of course, it evolves over time. Right? So Debashi, one more a minute or little less. But I was just saying that how are you going to be, yes, you embody the mindset, but we can't talk about that mindset in isolation, isn't it?
Yeah, you can't.
You can't, because
That's what
it's
they're on.
not in it's not in a vacuum. And we also talk of presence, right? And presence is also such a beautiful competency. They come together. It's really the ability to be fully conscious and be present with the client. It's the pillar around which the foundation and the pillar where, around these, you can weave your entire conversation. And for you coming from an architectural background, it's the foundation, and one is the pillar standing like that. And you can weave an entire coaching conversation around these two. Because if these are absent, nothing works.
I was waiting for that. Somebody who knows Sandhya is that she's a master in metaphors. I think one of the webinars was fully with metaphors. We started from the glacier and then the river rolled. The entire webinar was vivid, full. I was just waiting for the metaphor. So,
So
Because
Debeshi, before you can move, I want to just add
Yeah.
on something with your permission. This is off script, but I couldn't help thinking of it. And this is a question for everyone here. And you don't have to answer it in the chat box, but I'd like you to really think about it. So here's a situation, and building on what Sandhya said, really being aware, and I think being aware of the consequences, your emotion or your emotional state, or your way of being. Imagine there's something that happens. There is a power cut at your place. You have terribly disturbed sleep. You have a coaching call scheduled at 9:30 a.m. in the morning. Yeah, you pop in your favorite headache tablet because you've woken up with a splitting headache. Now you have two choices. Of course, try the tablet, not sort of leave it to fate if that's your way of doing it, and see if it gets better. Let's assume it doesn't get much better. You have a choice to message, and you have a clause, right? Like most coaches would. Any session that needs to be called off, you need to let us know, whatever, 24, 48 hours in advance. The clause is there, but apart from the clause, there is also something else. Now you have a choice to message the client and tell them, maybe an hour early or half an hour early, that I'm not keeping well. I have a severe headache or whatever, and the session goes. You have another choice. Your client's never going to know that you have a splitting headache. And this is a very, very difficult client to get. Your sessions are held at a frequency of once in 30 days. Now, what's a better choice? Because there is a risk that you may never get this person for the next 1 month. So what's the choice that you would make? And to me, this is the essence of knowing your limitations, knowing your state. Because this is not neglect, completely for reasons beyond your control. And yet there is a professional duty of care. So this to me is coaching mindset. Because whatever you plan, whatever you have done, it's still going to come. And you're human, right? Maybe this is where AI scores better than us, but the truth is there's a choice. So every moment we are making those choices. So while you can think about your answers, I must tell you, today I've come to a stage, and again, I come from, a very strong professional standard and ethics kind of background, where part of my identity is to be professional, which means that you honor commitments, which means that you don't give excuses, that you show up. It's very important for me as a person. But that's where the evolution has happened, that today I have actually called off sessions because I didn't feel fit enough. And I don't beat myself up about it. Of course, am I happy about it? Probably not, right? I mean, you really don't want it because you've got to then deal with the consequences. But the truth is, it's not all in your hands. So where do you draw that line? What is the right amount of preparedness that the same competencies talk about? Emotional preparedness. Is emotional preparedness not a consequence of physical preparedness? So we can kind of have ethical debates on this.
Absolutely.
But the question is, are you even debating about it, or you're just accepting one as the right way? It is this ability to have those debates, the self-talk that I spoke about, right? These difficult conversations that are sticky, and just don't, you rather just take one and face the consequences of it, right? Either way, the client's not going to know. So I'd like to leave you with this, saying this to me is a build on what Sandhya said. These are the practical
Right.
questions through which our own evolution happens.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thanks for that, Vijay. Because I was just going to go ahead and talk about this. Because you've got to be in a life state to take things the way they are in the moment, correct? And you've got to have that belief in yourself and in that moment, what action you take, what choices you make. So, I would say that I know that word mindfulness is being thrown around left, right, and center, and lots of times it's misunderstood. But that self-awareness that I'm talking about is really the foundation of being mindful. And mindful thought is a result of minute by minute awareness. Can you make that choice? If you're not aware, you won't be able to make that choice, because ultimately, how you're feeling, your physical, mental, emotional state is is a product of whatever has happened, of all the stimuli, right? And there is always a choice between the stimulus and the response. What are you going to do? So with that kind of, if you've got to do those things somewhere, what are you going to rely on? Are you going to get all emotional about it? Are you going to fret about it? Those choices are there. Those two choices about will you call the client, will you not? But what about inside and outside of the session? If you are in that state of detachment, when I say detachment, I'm not talking about not caring about your client during the conversation or outside of it. Detachment means looking at something objectively. And this is at no point saying that your emotions are not involved, because emotions are just there. We are human, and emotions will always drive people, and they will drive performance. But the detachment that I'm talking about is a detachment where I care so much about my client and someone else in my environment that I just let them be. And I extend the same thing to myself. I let myself be. In fact, we are all so conditioned to not have compassion for ourselves, right? Compassion is always external. That's how we are conditioned. But what about some compassion for yourself to answer that question that Vijay has asked, right? Now,
I'm loving what you both have created, because we moved from the G0 stage to, coming to full bloom.
yeah,
And at this stage, you're talking about the environment. The coach is the catalyst, is the seed for the ripple. We just had Raga, and we were talking about the coaches being creating this. We are the hope makers, change makers of the world, and we go out in the organization when we create leaders as a coach. What is that we are creating? We are
yeah,
having this mindset being
correct.
developed. They might or might not be doing coaching session, but the choices, the decisions, being able to do that is having that coach in the body of that leader. Now, while we are talking about this environment, talking about this scale of impact the coaches are going to have, tell us, how do you see the future of coaching, and not just within the session? I would invite all of you, since the conversation is going out or in a bigger impact, like, what does the future of coaching look like, Viji, to you? Past 5 years, it has become something which we never imagined. So what's next? What are your thoughts?
Um, Obviously, I think some apparent things would happen, right? Which happens in any growing, emerging profession. There are certainly going to be more coaches, more people who understand, for example, the current generations, understand, you say coaching, they do understand it, which is very different from the times probably I grew up and or even when I started practicing. So all of that is going to happen. But I think also what's going to happen is, how do I put this? There is going to be a lot of cleanup that will happen.
Mhm.
Today, one of the challenges we have in the industry is, because it's an unregulated industry, there is a place for everybody to be a coach, and that's okay. But there's also a lot of other things that are happening in the name of coaching. And with the end consumer actually getting more aware and conscious, it's like health food. Today, people read labels. My kids read labels. That's the first thing they read. A much more health conscious generation, because that's how they've grown up and they have access to that. So consumers are going to start reading the coach labels. Yeah, doesn't mean we got to fear. I don't think so. Because one of the things of an emerging profession is that there are going to be far many more opportunities, far many more applications of coaching. Today, students in, I would say, university are actually getting into paid coaching, and I'm seeing that. So I think the opportunities are going to be there, but there's also going to be a lot of buyers beware. Yeah, caveat emptor. So buyers are going to beware and going to make those choices. So there's going to be a lot of shake up and clean out that will happen. So it's a great opportunity. It's a great time to be in coaching. But I think it's also an important time to really, really strengthen and be very clear about what you're bringing into the world. And there's going to be a lot of choice. Earlier, people would choose coaches. They were restricted to coaches in their locality or area. Today, it doesn't matter. We've seen that. All of us have seen that happen in front of our own eyes. It's just going to get better. And also with low cost technology options available, that's going to give you easier fast food options for coaching. It's even more reason why I think the clean out will happen. So it is not just that technology is coming and going to make life difficult for coaches or whatever, right? As people worry. But I think the evolution of the consumer is actually going to make that happen. Today, consumers will have a choice. They want more transactional coaching, there's always technology. If they want a very different kind of higher order coaching, whatever you want to call it, right? Deeper work, there are people available. So I think we need to be very clear. The future is for sure bright, but I think we need to tread with responsibility. And let me just say this, saying that there's going to be a great future which lies ahead for clients and coaches alike. But I think it's even more important for coaches to start wearing our identity seriously. So I would even say making those choices. How much of yourself do you want to invest in coaching and building your practice and developing yourself? And obviously, like Sandhya said, it comes with choices that you make. So it's a
doesn't
good
come
time to
overnight.
really go back to the drawing board and think about how seriously do you want to play in this? And it's okay. I know people who've come in who got coach trained, who've kind of said, no, this is not making much sense to me. And this is not what I want to be doing for the rest of my life. And that's totally okay to make that choice. Because irrespective, right, whether you're kind of running coaching business or practicing or using those skills, it's never going to go waste. You will certainly be a better person. So it's important to really say whether you want to practice coaching, you want to be, what's the word? You want to be a weekend coach, you want to be a serious coach, you want to make this your all. This is a good time to make choices. And there's no one way. Today, I know that, let's say in HR leadership recruitments, coaching is one skill that people are looking at. Hey, are you a coach? Do you get coaching? I know CEOs are being asked this question, the passion for mentoring and coaching. So these are great places to add that on. So I would just say that today, from coaching, from being a singular modality and giving singular career choices to people, is just going to expand so much, which comes with its own risk. And it's a great time to start making choices.
Wow. So that was a very brave invitation to everybody. And it's a time to rise. And as a community, like ICF chapters are the communities where we do it together. It's not a lonely journey. It's not an individual game anymore. Sandhya, do you want to add to what do you think our coaching trends are going to be like? Something that excites you, something that concerns you?
Yeah, so change will happen. We've evolved over the last I mean, the profession has evolved over the last 2 decades. It will continue, and I definitely see a new paradigm where I would say, yes, there's going to be more and more coaching. There will be maybe and my experience also tells me that the rise of more consciousness based coaching, where, there might be a shift from performance coaching to deep transformation, because the shift, it is always in the human story, it is always the inside out story, right? I also see AI and technology impacting coaching, while we will have to, work towards preserving the human connection. And something that we will need to do, of course, the cleaning up and enriching will also happen. Evolving as a coach, for each one of us, evolve as a coach. All that we've just spoken about doesn't happen in a day. It's a journey. In fact, as a mentor or anybody, I talk about credentials all the time. I always say that it is not just one, uh, it's not just ACC, PCC, MCC. These are, yes, tangible um, scales or measurements, but within these, from point A to point B to point C to point D, lies the evolution of a coach, the individual. And that is evolving and being on the path of mastery. There is nothing to mastery. I don't see, personally, I don't see the end. It's a learning continuum. And the power of coaching as a force, I think it's going to be a global change everywhere. I mean, we've moved from a time where we were talking about, making the effort to explain what coaching is. When we started our careers, I think we were talking to people and saying, hey, this is what coaching is. It is different from counseling and other modalities. So it's moved on from there, and it's going to move, way ahead. And I would say this whole thing of blending, because that's where I sit, perhaps, EQ, SQ, and other skills into our practice, understanding neuroscience, all of that is going to make a whole lot of difference. But the evolution of the coach must continue, adapt to the changes. That's the future I see, Debashi. And I think more and more people understand coaching. So there's going to be perhaps more work, more coaches. But what I find deeply concerning is that more coaches part. I think, Vijay, you'll resonate there. You also mentioned that where are the clients, right? Maybe the clients will grow, maybe the market will grow. But my concern is more in terms of quality versus quantity. What are we bringing to the table? Is it just enough to be a coach? What am I What value am I adding to another individual's life? What value am I bringing to their life? And for that, I need to evolve as a coach, because it's been a very, very deep belief for me that I can only take my client as deep and as far as I've been myself. And that's not to say it's the same path. When I understand that it's an inside out approach, when I understand that I need to evolve inside to create that shift outside, to manifest that shift outside,
Yeah.
I need to change. I need to work on myself. And that's for the coaches.
We will quickly take a couple of questions.
Sure. Thank you.
Aniket, do you want to unmute yourself and ask your question? Thank you for asking
There's
that.
also a question from Aniket, and we can take that maybe after
Yes,
Pradeep.
Aniket, same Aniket, I think,
Hi,
right? Yeah.
good.
Yes.
Yeah, I think Pradeep has raised his hand. He wants to ask a question.
Yeah, I'm going to pin him as well. So I need to go with you.
Yes, good evening,
Okay, so my
everyone.
thank you
Hello.
first of all for organizing this Delhi chapter, and thank you, Vijay and Sandhya, for this wonderful conversation that you're having with Debishi. My question is about, as a recently transitioned person to coaching, my question is about the emergence of new niches in coaching, because what I have observed over the last 1 or 2 years is most of the coaching happens around corporate executive leadership, career, etc. What about those untapped niches? What are your views on that front?
Yeah, good question. And I just want to build on to what I said earlier. There is a lot of potential. Any new niche comes with its own risk. The first movers are going to have it tough. Okay, but I would just urge you, if you can spot an area where you think there is great potential for coaching, I think jumping in and doing the groundwork and doing the trial and error, the niches will expand once you have some early stage coaches coming in and offering service.
Right.
I think that's the way I've seen, at least in the last couple of years, very unique niches getting created. And that's the way to go about it. But the only thing I want to say is conventional approach, like you said, may not work. Conventional pricing models may not work. You may have to position it very differently. You may even have to position the format of coaching. Yeah. So for example, you're talking about, a super busy population. You may not want to schedule more than 40-minute sessions.
Mhm.
I, for example, do a lot of WhatsApp coaching. Now, this is very difficult, to transition into, but there is a demographic that is wanting that.
Yes.
So rather than, I think, cutting it by topics, I see, niches, more powerful by demographic.
Correct.
Yeah.
So for example, there may be a huge overlap. You position yourself as a health coach and a leadership coach and a life coach. There's a lot of overlap. But you position yourself with a demographic and you're able to offer solutions. I mean, not solutions. I know that's a wrong thing. It's a paradox. But, from their point of view, bring value or help them towards a solution that they're looking for, that particular demographic. You're actually going to be tapping into and creating something very special for them.
Right.
So I would say if you have access to a unique demographic and you see an opportunity there, coaches must take the lead and jump in and just test the waters. That's the way new niches will grow.
And Vijay, I would say that you might be working in niche X, and within that demographic, within that area, you might find a different niche while
Yeah.
you're working in that specific area.
Sure.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks for answering.
Thank you so much, Aniket, for asking that question. Pradeep, please.
Yes, good evening, everyone. And I'm really delighted to be here and thank all the speakers for sharing their experiences and the insightful presentation and sharing. I have my first question is that, in fact, I put in my message also about quality and quantity. It's very important. But the fear is that we may grow, the industry may grow, but what we find is that they are fake coaches and they're actually genuine coaches. And the more we grow, there is a fear of having more of the fake coaches, because every Tom, Dick, and Harry, sometimes you come across, what are you doing these days? Oh, I'm a life coach. Oh, I'm a business coach. Everybody is carrying that business card. So, how to identify who's genuine, who's not at the first go, unless it comes out from the market? And that person who's fake may have a solid social media backup. He has got money to do so, and may penetrate through his references also. By the way, I'm not a coach. I'm a life skill facilitator. And I fully agree with Sandhya ji that whether it's mindfulness or it's a meditation or spirituality, is certainly a thing which is required for our own personal development and my own self-coaching, and also when we are a mentor or a coach or a trainer or a facilitator. I may share something later on, one or two experiences of my life where, how it worked. Thank you.
Yeah, I think what you've asked is a question for a complete full-fledged webinar. I'm not ducking it, but I think this is something we need more conversations on. How do we educate the market? How do we, like I said, how do you have a certain consumer protection? These all become very important topics for discussion. But I just want to say two things. One, basis somebody who, and this is not a new concern, right? I mean, this has been there for a while as the profession has grown. And I can just say one thing from experience, that if each of us is kind of going about doing the best work, right? And I mean, with your professional credibility, your professional growth, your investment in yourself, credentials, whatever you think makes you the right kind of coach, you do your work. Very soon, you are going to cut through the clutter, and you are going to earn that reputation of being that, not the fake coach. It's like any other profession, right? Which is not regulated. People are going to figure out. So I think continuing to do good work, continuing to invest in yourself, continuing to upgrade yourself, continuing to practice ethically. So I'm not giving a systemic solution. I'm bringing in a coach practitioner solution. This is what I would do as a coach. Now, systemically, this is where, and I think, and I'm very happy that we have chapter leaders here. I saw chapter leaders from some other chapters as well. This is the great opportunity for chapters. This whole piece on consumer awareness, the whole piece on awareness of coaching, the whole piece. And I think, we need to tilt the balance a little bit. And I think while webinars like this for coaches are great, I think there's a huge opportunity to do education and, knowledge sharing opportunities with consumers who are looking for authentic sources. And today, I think with, say, even in India, with 7 chapters, it's a great opportunity. And I think we need to do more. We really need to do more, because this is where groups need to come together, create this awareness. And the third thing I want to talk about again is what we can do as individual coaches, which is simply, rather than, putting our energy in calling out other people or calling out fakes or calling out concerns, put your energy in talking about and positioning. And this is why, and this is difficult for coaches, because a lot of coaches don't really like to put yourself out there. They're uncomfortable with marketing. You don't need to do mindless marketing. For example, right? I mean, many of us here are credential coaches or seeking credentials. You're a PCC. When was the last time you spoke about what it means to be a PCC, the journey that you've gone through, the investment that you've put in, the practice that you do? Now, this is how consumers will know, oh, okay, there is a PCC, or, if you have a credential from another body. What is that differentiates somebody who's invested and learned coaching or, practicing the right way from somebody else? I think we need to talk more. And this is not about mindless marketing. This is about the journey that has built us. So there is an opportunity for associations, for collectives, for, people who are sort of holding the space of coaching systemically to do huge opportunity. But I think there's also a lot of opportunity for each of us in our little, circle of influence as coaches to do our bit to ensure that at least in our circle of influence, people know who are the, the original, right? And where are the duplicates? So that's what I would like to say.
And Vijay,
We
this
have
problem has
exceeded-
been there. It's not new.
Yeah, it's not new.
It's not new. It's just been there for ever since we've been in the coaching profession. So we've also worked our way and evolved through it, right?
Uh, so I'd love to take more questions. We have Morel, but we have exceeded the time. What is that you both want to do? Do you want to take one more question for our
Yeah, I could. Yeah, we could do one and then close with
and
that.
we'll close. So Morel, why don't you unmute yourself and you have to unmute yourself, Morel. You're on mute. And thank you so much, Pradeep.
It's more of an acknowledgement than a question. I loved listening from the other side of the world to what you were saying. And the word consciousness, the word intuition, and what I would call the space in between us, the space it created in the relationship. And what I observe gratefully from your conversation and that I've listened in on is the space in between you as a group of people, us as a group of people. And the metaphor, the image that came to my mind is you talked about needing to have gone the place that the client follows, to create the space in relationship and consciousness for somebody else to step into. And the image I get is that really maybe the role of coaching is as a wave of consciousness is breaking through our cultures and societies, our job is to really surf the edge of that wave and create the space for humanity to step into a new consciousness that's really due and necessary and important. And I'm left with the thought, because you all share a really unique culture. I'm left with the thought, if we did this with the South Africa chapter, for example, what's the consciousness in the room, and how is that edge of the wave of consciousness being explored on the southern tip of Africa as much in the beautiful continent of India? So namaste, and I'm very grateful.
Thank you, Morel.
So much, Morel.
Thank you so much.
Nina Verma from our chapter is here. Why don't you unmute yourself and share your question?
Hello, namaste, and good evening, everyone. And I'm conscious of the fact that there's very little time, so I won't spend more time on that. But honestly, if I had more time, I would really go at length, acknowledging and appreciating the depth and the richness of conversation today. Thank you so much to Vijay and Sandhya for that. I wanted to speak only in reference to the niche's question. And though it has been very well answered, I just wanted to mention a limited thing, which is like in the wake of pandemic, there's a growing trend of people offering things called grief coaching and trauma coaching. I have a humble submission to make, and I make this submission based on my 20 years of experience as a coach and 12 years as a credentialed coach, and nearly 20 years, close to 20 years, working in the grief and trauma space also. I have a humble submission to make. Grief and trauma do not fall in coaching domain. Let us please be mindful of the fact that we might end up causing more harm than help to the clients. Resilience, transition, post-traumatic growth, yes, they do have a fairly good overlap between therapy, coaching, and counseling. But grief and trauma, I have a humble request to everybody, please avoid taking it up in coaching space unless you have the due training and due experience. And I hope people are taking this request with due objectivity and maturity. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Nina, for bringing that up. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for giving me a moment.
I think this calls for another webinar where we can talk about all those different, niches.
Yeah.
I know we can go on and on, but we all have to take a pause and make some space for reflection and come back one more time for one more conversation. Before we end, Vijay and Sandhya, one word, one line for all the coaches who are here and the ones who are going to listen to this webinars like I listened to your webinars and became who I am. So for the listeners who are going to listen to this recording maybe 50 years from now, what is that you're going to say?
Sandhya, you can go first. I didn't expect that question.
Neither did I. This is Debashi pulling out the last minute tricks from her bag. But what would I say? I would say, just the fact that everyone is here and that enthusiasm, that seeking spirit is just commendable. Just continue like that. And the one or two traits that I would say, just focus on that, keep that vulnerability and adaptability alive.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I would just say the future is now.
Yeah.
Wow. That one word is a button which starts and makes us go and, take inspired action. So to everyone who is watching this, you are a part of the new story. The new reality is getting created as we speak. As we have seen in history, facts, realities changing, the way they behave as communities, as individual. 50 years back, 5 years ago, we have seen the change and it's real. So all the dreams that you have for your profession, being a coach, being a coaching enthusiast, and being the leader of tomorrow, all of that is going to become real. If you map your story, if you position, if you have that confidence in being who you are, having that mindset and spreading that mindset from an individual to a system. We'll change one story at a time, and that becomes his story. Women's Day is close by, so maybe, our story. So, on that note, have a lovely weekend, and each thought that you have today, it's a seed, make it bloom and listen to more of Sandhya and Vijay wherever you find their videos and their webinars. Don't miss anyone. Thank you so much and good night. Namaste.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Debeshi. Thank you,
Thank you,
Sandhya.
Vijay.
Thank you
Thank
so
you,
much.
Good
Sandhya.
night.
Thank you for being
Bye, everyone. Thank
listening
you
to
for
all
being
that
here.
we had to say.
Thank you.